Hi, and welcome back again to Tim Bigham's Options and Volatility newsletter. We'll be taking a look once again at why IV matters, why implied volatility is the most important concept in option trading. Taking a look today at some SPY puts from a more protection and perhaps a trade standpoint as well here. We were briefly trading with a 14 handle today on the VIX, so pulled off the option pricing at that time. We did close back above the 15 level, but not by a huge amount. Compare that to when the VIX was at the highest level of the year, right? Today, we hit basically the lowest level of the year. Compare that to back in early April when the VIX was shooting up towards 50 and just see how much that affects option pricing. So let's jump in and take a look. First, here is from today with the VIX dipping below 15, trading with a 14 handle. SPY I'm using, same as the SPX, right? But pulled it off. It was trading at 636.43. Looked at a 38-day to expiration option, basically a month out in time, right? And the slightly out of the money put, right? The 635 put, which is just a little bit under where SPY was trading at the time. So basically an at the money put, right? Out of the money by only 1.43 points or 0.22%. The IV only at 12.27, so certainly getting low, right? The price of that option, $8.36. So put protection, right, over that 38-day period would cost roughly 1.32%. The price of the index, right? You're protecting yourself below 635 and paying a little over 1% for that. Let's take a look back when the VIX was at the highest level of the year. Remember, today we hit basically the lowest level of the year. So back in early April, you can see April 9th here, the SPY dipped below 500, was at 496.48. Days to expiration, basically the same. 37 I compared to 38 today. So if anything, the option should be cheaper back then compared to now because it's 1 day less to expiration, right? Out of the money amount, a little bit more out of the money, right? 1.48 versus 1.43, so slightly more out of the money, basically the same thing. So a very similar option, right? 0.3% out of the money versus 0.22. So this option, because it's further out of the money slightly, one more day or one less day till expiration, should be a little bit cheaper, but lo and behold, the price that put over $24 compared to just over $8 today. So in essence, triple the price back then. And the SPY is more than 100 points higher. So it's basically saying if your house goes up in value, you can get the same insurance for a much cheaper price. Makes no intuitive sense, but why did it happen? Because back then, the IV on the option was over 40, so that put protection, right, basically the at the money put would cost almost 5% to insure your portfolio for loss on any further down move versus just over 1% today. So that was one look. Taking a look a little bit longer term, right? Same thing pulled off from today with the SPY at 636.50, right? VIX was at the lowest level of the year, trading under 15. Looked at 80 days to expiration on this particular one, a little bit longer term. The 630 put, right, a touch further out of the money, but basically 1% out of the money, right? And that option was priced at a little bit over $12, trading at about a 14.5 IV. Would it cost a little bit less than 2%, right, to insure your portfolio over that 80-day period. Let's go back to when the VIX was at the highest level, right, in early April again, the VIX approaching 50, right? We see that SPY trading at 496.48. Days to expiration, I chose 72, right? So 8 days shorter than the comparative to today on the longer term one. That 490 put out of the money by 6.48, basically the same amount, but percentage wise, because the index was over 100 points lower, right? The percentage out of the money is certainly less, 1.3% further out of the money on that one compared to 1% today. So you're looking at a further out of the money put with less time until expiration. Both of those should add up with IV being equal to this option being cheaper, right? Less time to expiration, further out of the money should make the option cheaper. But lo and behold, trading at over $26 compared to $12 now, right? So more than double the price. Why? Because IV at 35 compared to 14, right? And that put protection, right? Basically ensuring against any significant down move, right? Over 5% for protection then versus less than 2% for longer term options. So again, shows how much implied volatility affects the price of options and why now looking to maybe put on a little bit of put protection with the VIX basically very near the yearly lows, right? With markets very near the all-time highs and valuations at all-time highs. To me, it makes a lot of sense to be looking to maybe put on a little bit of put protection or buy some puts as a trade for a pullback here. As we've talked about, the market hasn't been below the 20-day moving average for over 60 days now, approaching 66, I think, is where it's at now, the second longest streak in history. So due for a pullback somewhere along the way. When it is anyone's best guess, but going out in time certainly can give you enough time for that to happen. But really shows the dynamic of how much more expensive options were when the tariff turmoil had fully erupted, right? Versus the uber calmness we're seeing now, and why now may be a very good time to be looking to buy some puts. So until next time, as always, here's the good trading.